let's get into this. This model here is called the conversion flow. This is the basis for the sales system, for our kind of sales system, right? And it's only got there's three main pieces to this, right? It's actually very simple, believe it or not. Qualify, quantify, and quote. Okay. So if you look at the sales process side of things, this is the simple way that we build out a process. Let's talk about this. So pre-qualification, you've got someone maybe with some sort of curiosity. So it's like, hey, can these guys help me? Are they the right people for me? All that type of stuff. And maybe they've come in, they're a lead from marketing, whatever the case is. This is sales. We're not talking about marketing just yet, right? Qualification is all about confirming compatibility between you and the client. You'll see that there's kind of two sides to this. So qualify, you want to bring in people who are compatible, right? The quantify stage is all, well, and actually, let me just say this. I've tried to put the most relevant piece at each stage, but all of these things are relevant at all stages, right? So in other words, making sure that people are compatible. If you don't figure that out to the quote stage, then it's still time for them to go, right? Or time for to do something different, right? Quantify and talk about confidence. The confidence piece needs to be there throughout the whole sales process. Your entire sales process should help someone to be confident that you can actually do what you say you're going to do, right? Quote stage, certainty. By the time you get to there, hopefully they're absolutely certain. And beyond that is what I would call commitment. Here's something I've been thinking about recently, and it's not in this model. We never use the word close. We never talk about closing a deal or closing a sale, right? And the way I'd like you to start thinking about the close is, instead of closing a deal or closing a sale, think about it as opening a relationship, right? Does that make sense? That's a fair bit of a reframe, right? I think people think about, they're like, oh, this is it. We're going to get to the end of it. We're going to close the deal. It's like, no. We're opening a relationship at that point in time, right? Because there's this. I think people in general at the moment are way too transactional. It's really easy to get transactional with sales. In other words, I'm selling this, I'm selling that. Let's close that deal. Let's close that deal. It allows you to get transactional, right? Becoming relational is going to help you to not only get that deal, but multiple deals afterwards. Not just from that client maybe, but from their friends and their family and all that sort of stuff, right? So think about it as opening a relationship. Cool. All right. That's probably another rant, to be honest. The stretch. We'll talk about the stretch later. Okay. Curiosity stage. We're kind of talking about symptoms. So you'll hear me talk a lot about when your product, your service simply is solving a problem. Okay. So one of the big things that you're trying to do is identify what are the symptoms of those problems that you can actually help them to solve. You can help them to get to a solution. Qualify, suitability, which is talking about that from the other side of compatibility. Fair enough. Okay. Quantify. I put the word system in there. I think that one of the biggest indicators, so one of the biggest things that we've installed, right, for builders and trades, both of them, in terms of the sales process, to help their clients to be confident that they can actually do what they say they're going to do, is a system. Is simply some kind of process. Okay. Tonight, we're going to go through the first part of the system. Literally, I'm going to give you a framework for qualifying. Qualifying is the thing that you'll need first. Okay. Because as you'll see with this process, if you get the qualifying wrong, you can't fix the rest of this. Okay. But having some sort of process, like showing your client you've got some sort of process, some sort of system in place, is going to be really helpful for you and for your client to increase their confidence. Make sense? Quote, it's all about providing solutions. So I think one of the things I said, can't remember what I said it, but when we talk about sending out quotes or sending out, and by the way, we call it quoting here because it's like everything else starts with Q. So we're just continuing, right? But we don't call it quote when we're sending it to the client. It's not called a quote, it's called a proposal, it's called an estimate, whatever you want to call it, right? But one of the things I really encourage you to put into any sales documentation that you're sending to the client, which is like specific to them, right? So in other words, if it's a quote or a proposal or whatever that case is, and it's something based on a conversation you've had with them, make sure that it's solution focused. So in other words, simply put in the bullet points of the conversation you've had with them, right? So in other words, based on all of our discussions so far and all the information you've provided me, I understand, that you want this, and this, right? And so I've put this proposal together with all of that in mind, type of thing, right? And that's like, there's much better ways to say it, and we've written it out already somewhere, but does that make sense? Make sure that that's actually included. So Anthony, when you're talking about sending out your proposals, like if you've had a conversation with the client, just put 3 bullet points of, hey, I remember you said this, and I remember you said this, and I remember you said this. Make sure that they feel heard. Cool, done. All right, and hopefully you get to success. Now, the stretch. If you remember, hopefully you remember, I think it was last week, I said, people buy when there's a gap between they are and where they want to be. Do you remember that? You remember me saying that? Big concept. But this stretch, so that a really good sales process, and actually let me just give a slight disclaimer here. The more expensive you're selling something for, the more important it is to go through every step of this sales process, and the longer it will take, the more you'll stretch it out, okay? If you're selling something that's $200, this entire process could take like 10 minutes, right? Not even, probably 10 minutes actually seems a little bit long for something that's $200, right? But it's like this entire process can be done very, very quickly. If you're selling something for $200,000, it might take a little bit longer, right? Definitely more than 10 minutes. Does that make sense? And also, with that, the more important the stretch is. Okay, so the more important it is to basically make sure that your client or your potential client understands the gap between where they are, where they want to be, and you are positioned as the solution. That makes sense? You're positioned right in the middle, and you're the person who can help them release the tension that's kind of built up from going, you know what, I'm here, I really want to be there. I've got to buy this thing. Cool? All right. Now, let's just map out. So two different types of sales. So there's, I think about it as just like a simple sale and a complex sale, right? And simple sale, like I said, can be really, really quick. And it might be that you move through it within a few minutes. Inquiry, job details. And this is not every simple sale doesn't look exactly like this, but certainly this is how it could look, right? Estimate, proposal, agreement, you're done, right? Completion. Go and get the job done. The complex sale is generally going to have a few more components. So as you move through this process, there's just more in it. Connect, nurture, and that nurturing could take weeks, months, whatever it is. If you're a builder, definitely could take months. We call that next stage a project brief stage, where we get all information from the client. So kind of there's a lot more components, and that's kind of just reinforcing what I said earlier, that it will take a lot longer, right? There might be a ballpark estimate. There might be, we do something called an engagement approval, which is like, which is basically where you get paid for the proposal stage. Proposal. So there's all this stuff, right? Hang on. So I'll let you guys just kind of write that down because I don't think it's actually, no, it's not in there. There's two very different, they are two very different processes, even though the overview, the outline of the process looks identical. Basically, it works this way. So if you get qualifying wrong, it's pretty much impossible to fix it any other stage, because it's basically like you will let through. So let's just say you let 100% of people through the qualifying stages. That means you might get to quantify and quote for all of those people, right? And then you'll find out whether they're a fit or not. All right. So really, in my mind, the most important one to make sure we get right first is qualifying, and then we can go through and fix the other ones, right? Quantify stage, if we get that wrong, that can really affect, profitability. Like we might estimate a job wrong. It might take too long to estimate. It might stretch out the amount of time it takes to actually quote a job. So we can kind of, that can affect the conversions, and obviously quote stage will definitely affect the conversions if you don't have the right things in the quote and if it takes too long to get there. All right.